The aim of the community safety audit is simple.
It's about how can we make the community safer.
The 65-page document identifies potentially dangerous locations in the city and suggests ways to improve them.
We all have a stake in this. There are responsibilities for state government agencies, there are responsibilities for council, and indeed it is about all of us working together to make this work.
Top on the list of the city's trouble spots was the Mall, Nobby's and the Newcastle foreshore, the western end of Hunter Street and the Newcastle Beach Tunnel. Just some of the audit's safety recommendations include improving public lighting, revising alcohol-free zones and opening the mall to one-way traffic. It also suggests installing traffic calming devices along Nobby's Road to slow down car hoons, the rapid removal of graffiti and high-visibility police operations. Of course, getting these measures put in place will all come down to a question of money, with Newcastle City Council responsible for implementing the most.
There's practically at this stage an unlimited amount of funding required to implement these things. So it'll be a matter of budgets, it'll be a matter of what money we can get from the state through Attorney Generals and other agencies.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It was overly ambitious with an unrealistic price tag of $37 million, so councillors requested Ron Ramsey, the new gallery director, investigate a more modest concept and report back. But he's yet to do that. The Lord Mayor says apart from trying to secure government funding and donations, part of the hold-up is this key site next to the gallery.
The land next to Derby Street is generally owned by council, except that the RTA owns one portion of it. Now, we want to get that into council ownership so that we can then put a building on it.
Extending the gallery to Derby Street would create more hanging space as well as shops and a cafe. But the catch is that it's used as an RTA staff car park, and employees say they wouldn't be happy about losing it.
Well, I believe we can achieve it with the goodwill of the Premier and the Minister for Roads.
Meanwhile, Newcastle East residents have voiced concerns about noise and traffic related to the new multi-purpose centre at Fort Scratchley. They want a 10 p.m. closure and an alcohol ban, but council wants to use the seaside centre for private functions and community events to help generate income for Fort Scratchley. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. For the private health sector, Nicola Roxon's compromise was an improvement on the original proposal of $100,000 for individuals and $150,000 for couples, but it's still not ideal.
It's not helpful to our business, but we're still confident of growing this year to achieving a reasonable level of profitability in the business.
The annual income threshold will rise from $50,000 to $70,000 for singles and more for couples, removing incentives for taking out health insurance. But the health insurer did have something to smile about today, launching the NIB Foundation, set up to provide funding for health programs, including medical research. They have $25 million at their fingertips.
We think it's a significant amount of money, correctly managed, which will give ongoing contribution to that health and wellbeing area.
And it's really like a parliament. It makes the decisions about the future of the Anglican diocese.
It's been a late start to the season for wine growers, with vines coming to life 7 weeks into spring. But these precious little bunches, combined with good ground moisture, hold the potential for a strong harvest come next year.
Of course, we're in the lap of the gods what the rest of the season does, but at this point in time it's looking good.
But growers are still feeling the effects of the strong Australian dollar earlier in the year. The latest estimates from the Australian Bureau of Statistics show a fall of 5.3% in domestic wine sales this month. But there is a flip side, as Hope Estates' Michael Hope found out when working with promoters from Sydney for his new expansive amphitheatre.
What I've now learnt, though, in talking to the poor promoters who have to go and bring import acts in US dollars, they're feeling the pinch the other way.
The Valley's largest outdoor entertainment venue will have a greater capacity than the Sydney Entertainment Centre and will stage guitar great Eric Clapton for its debut act.
I'm very, very nervous, nervously excited about how big a concert will be, and he's such a big name. It'll be awesome.
Lucy Wilson, NBN News. Calmly sitting alongside their older peers, 14-year-olds Megan Vile and David Ferris took today's HSC English exam in their stride.
I'm relieved that the first exam's over, I'm so glad, and probably can't wait to finish it, but not as stressed as everyone else is.
For David, sitting HSC exams has become an annual event.
When I was 12, I did 2-unit mathematics, and then when I was 13, 3-unit mathematics. This year I'm doing everything else.
Neither of the young teens seem to realise how amazing their accomplishment is.
It just seems completely normal, and it's not as though I'm doing anything particularly special. Anybody could do what I'm doing.
I don't really know any different, I wouldn't know what it's like doing it when I'm 18.
And the age gap hasn't set them apart from their peers, with Megan clearly just one of the girls. David's father says he realised his son was exceptionally bright when he was just 17 months old.
We actually found him reading. He'd taught himself to read after watching Sesame Street.
The young teenager's learning was accelerated through the Gifted and Talented program on offer at St Philip's Christian College.
These students have done really well, and in fact they just haven't sat for the HSC, they've excelled, and both of them received Academic Excellence Awards at our Year 12 prize giving.
The students plan to stay in contact next year. They've both enrolled for degrees at the University of Newcastle. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
A casual stroll with the boss this morning was the perfect way for Isaac de Gois to get comfortable at the ground he'll call home for the next 3 seasons. Despite the obvious pressure, the 23-year-old doesn't seem fazed by the task of filling the number 9 jersey left vacant by club legend Danny Badiris.
Mate, not really nervous. I already spoke to Brian about that, and just got to come in and play my own game and obviously work on a few things. But Danny's one of the greatest hookers in the world, and mate, I'm just going to come here and try and do my best for the Knights.
After suffering a heartbreaking exit from the finals, the former Shark is hoping to take the Knights back to the postseason.
Every team builds up, to make the finals and go on from there. So, mate, it's the start of something new, and it'll be good to be a part of.
Having grown up in Sydney, de Gois is looking forward to the move away from home and the opportunity to play alongside established stars Kurt Gidley and Jared Mullen. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. All hands on deck at Jets training this morning as Jade North returned to Newcastle after suffering an injury that kept him out of the Socceroos clash with Qatar. The captain confident he'll last 90 minutes.
Yeah, I feel great. Obviously I got injured in camp when I was away, but I feel good today. Did a bit of a fitness test and, it's come up okay.
Adam and Joel Griffiths also completed the session but are more cautious about their fitness.
Personally, I feel good, but, I said before, I want to be 100%, so I think we'll make the decision probably tomorrow morning and see how it pulls up.
Joel says he could end up making a late cameo off the bench.
Whatever's best for the team, I think. If I start, great, but I don't think I'll last the 90. I know with hamstrings it starts to get fatigued in the second half.
Tomorrow night is also a historic occasion with the Jets youth team set to play its first game at Energy Australia Stadium. With homegrown talent such as Matt Harper in the team, players and staff are hoping fans will arrive early to show their support.
We've got 7 in the squad from Newcastle, so I think they'll be, without saying too much, they're excited within themselves, and I think they'll enjoy it. They should enjoy playing at home.
The youth game kicks off at 4:15. Main game starts at 7. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
A massive clean-up effort was underway at Williamtown's Metro service station this morning as staff, joined by firefighters, mopped up the mess left by a bungled ram raid. Police say at 3:20, 4 people in a stolen four-wheel drive smashed through the front of the business. Staff arrived at the scene just after 3:30 and were shocked by what they saw.
We found a car on fire sitting out the front of the service station where they drove through the window.
A gaping hole was left in one wall after the thieves unsuccessfully tried to rip out an ATM.
Actually, they've pushed it into the toilet, which isn't a good look.
Lee says she can't understand the stupidity of the crime.
Don't they have anything better else to do? When they've gone in, they haven't taken a thing, so what was the purpose of actually going in? They've taken nothing from inside the shop.
Meanwhile, police are investigating a suspicious fire at Hawk's Nest. This two-bedroom home on Carthena Avenue went up in flames just after 7:30 this morning. Firefighters say by the time they arrived, it was beyond saving.
Initially, the flames were coming out through the side of the roof in the front of the house, so we quickly knocked them down and also had hoses protecting the adjoining buildings.
One woman was inside the home when the blaze ignited, but managed to escape unharmed. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Brendan Smith from Pelican shot a first-round 66 to start the day as outright overnight leader. Not bad for someone who only decided to play at the last minute.
My brother had no one to play in the teams event, so being the good brother I am, I played. So yeah, I'm glad now.
We wonder if his big brother Chris feels the same. He finished the day at 2 under to trail the 19-year-old, who grabbed a birdie on the 17th and part of a three-way tie up front.
The course is very, very nice. I'm really impressed. Greens a little bit soft, but they roll true, which you want, and you can't ask for more than that.
A win tomorrow wouldn't be out of the question. But among those challenging is North Coast amateur Luke Henwood. He and his playing partners all birdied the 17th, but Henwood backed it up with another on the last to enjoy a share of the lead. Charlestown's Jake Higginbottom is the best placed junior, finishing the day at 1 over.
Be great to have 1,000 or so people behind walking with me. So, fingers crossed they'll get there. If they haven't, please come tomorrow. Get to the town hall at about 8 o'clock and register, and we'll go from there.
The fundraiser couldn't have got off to a better start.
The Australian Government says in terms of Black Dog's work, here is a $2 million cheque.
And the donations didn't stop there.
The cheque's for $100,000.
$2.1 million raised for the Black Dog Institute and research into bipolar disorder before the Andrew Johns Walk began pounding the pavement.
So we're going okay, and it's a bit dangerous for the Melbourne Cup around the corner too.
John's best mate went all out to show his support.
I was in depression myself, and my best mate there, Andrew, has had his problems, so we'll get through it together, and of course it's a great cause.
Hundreds of Novocastrians, along with Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, joined the League legend for the first stretch of his walk to Sydney. One fan was restrained by the Prime Minister's security after getting a little too close. The walk wound from Newcastle Civic Park, along the city's foreshore, through King Edward Park to finish at Empire Park. And what a finish it was.
So many people turned out. It's been a great day. The PM come, $2 million chipped in. The NIB Foundation chipped in another $100,000. What a start.
And John's former teammates were behind him every step of the way.
This is just such a great thing for everyone.
Glad I'm not going on the next 25Ks. That's pulled me up, I think.
Johns and Newcastle surfer Matt Hoy will head to the Central Coast tomorrow.
I thought the pace was going to be a lot quicker, so I'm ready. We're going to have a good week. I can't wait.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
In the weights room this morning, Marco Jesic certainly lifted the Jets last night. The 19-year-old can't recall the finer detail of how it all unfolded, but for those watching, it would be unforgettable.
All I just remember is just the poos, they just knocking the ball down and just in the air, and I just swung at the ball and just hit a far post.
And it hit the spot. The game breaker coming in the 85th minute, and in sealing the win for Newcastle, Jesic put national selectors on notice.
If I get a call up, it's good, Who wouldn't want to play for the country? But like I said, I'm trying to focus more with the Jets.
It could have been a double for Jesic, who earlier had a real chance. Jasper Hawkinson was also on target before a Rodrigo Vargas handball set up at Mundo Zura from right in front. The penalty was painful, no one feeling it more than the under-siege marquee himself. Jobe Wheelhouse was a handful for Melbourne striker Archie Thompson as Newcastle's defence kept a clean sheet.
Playing week in, week out, you get a lot of confidence and stuff, so over the past few years things haven't gone to plan, but this year, everything touch wood's going well.
Not the case for Thompson, who was sent off for dissent. A man up, the Jets won their first home game of the season, overcoming a major mental hurdle and no longer haunted by that 5-0 loss to Melbourne back in round 3.
Josh Holm and Troy Moffat are in rehab, having experienced firsthand the devastating impact alcoholism can have.
Took over the life of, drinking in the morning, drinking at lunchtime, drinking at dinner, and just continue to keep drinking until, black out.
It's had a profound impact on my life. It's taken away great jobs. I was a job as a car salesman. It's taken away opportunities to progress in sport, relationships. I've cut family off.
While they're on the road to recovery, new research commissioned by the Salvation Army shows millions of Australians are still suffering from alcohol addiction. They're now calling on the federal government to ban alcohol advertising.
Well, I was shocked by them, and I work in the industry, and I certainly would hope that the government would see this research and act on it.
Meanwhile, the Salvation Army has just received $1.1 million from the federal government to fund a drug and alcohol outpatient service here at Wickham for Hunter Valley people aged between 12 and 22. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
We haven't been able to determine the cause of the damage yet. It's too early. We will have to clear the area of the liquid chlorine before any investigation can take place.
Brady Flores has been having swimming lessons for 2 years, and with former Olympian Justin Norris as a mentor, he's kicking along.
When his brother was younger, he fell into a pool and it was quite scary for all of us, so we decided that we'd bring him here and teach him the safety.
The 5-year-old is learning that and more, but it's only part of the preparation for a summer of swimming.
Swimming lessons are obviously really important, but there's lots of things that people should be really covering, like making sure their environments are really safe and secure, pool fences, they're supervising their kids all the time.
Toddlers aged 1 to 3 are most at risk, with drowning the most common cause of death in this group. The beach has its obvious hazards for youngsters, but the backyard swimming pool can be the big danger, accounting for almost half of all drownings in the under 5s.
Keep your eyes on your child. If you've got a group of people around in your backyard, make sure that there's a designated set of eyes to be on those kids at all times, because it's so silent, so quick and so tragic.
KidSafe is still pushing to have a child safety centre built to further its cause.
Just 3 hours earlier, the man from Morisset began his radical ride at Bonnells Bay Primary School. No state-of-the-art machine for this 1,000-kilometre trip around rural New South Wales, a penny farthing chosen for a reason.
Well, it's massive and it attracts attention and the kids love it, and it's attention that we're after, and this thing's an attention-seeking machine.
Michael's aiming to raise $100,000 for the Asthma Foundation over his 9-day journey and spread hope for asthma sufferers.
I believe myself in exercise and being strong. The fitter I feel, the better I think I can cope with asthma, and I think that's a message to a lot of people.
He's off to a great start, having already raised $60,000 through pledges, and the whole family's doing its bit to help.
Well, we're really proud of him and we're going to miss him lots.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Joe Wheelhouse was all smiles at the Jets' recovery session yesterday, and with good reason. The 23-year-old was on the verge of signing a new contract, with the deal made official this afternoon. The Hunter-bred footballer has played all of his senior soccer based in Newcastle, and on Saturday night played his 50th game for the city. The news is a boost for the Jets as they prepare to meet the Mariners, who went down to Wellington last night.
It was just a bad day at the office yesterday, and we're playing in front of our home fans again, and we owe it to them to put on a good performance, and we'll be doing everything in our power to do that.
And they'll have a job containing Edmundo Zura if Newcastle's win over Melbourne was any indication. A public pre-game spray by Jets coach Gary Van Egmond sparked something in the Marquee, who, despite not scoring, appeared hell-bent on proving a point, pressuring to keep his spot against the Mariners. Positive signs too from twins Adam and Joel Griffiths, who made their return from injury, while Ben Kantarovski is healthy enough to start national duties on Wednesday, despite being stretchered off with cramps. Shooting 64 on the opening day, Nick Flanagan failed to enjoy the same success in the rounds that followed, but he did have his moments. Playing for his future on this tour, the 24-year-old needs top 5 finishes in his next 2 events. Currently 163rd on the money list, he must improve 38 places before the season's over, otherwise it's back to qualifying school. As an amateur though, back home, Flanagan played the Varden tournaments, the WE Alexander at Argenton among them. On a revamped course, Pelicans' Brendan Smith set a new record. He shot a 64 in yesterday's final round, and this on the 18th also produced a tournament best 15 under.
A couple of weeks ago, I struggled in a tournament and knocked my average around a little bit, but this week made up for it.
The New South Wales PGA and Open events are next for the 19-year-old who finished the Alexander 4 shots in front of Maclean's Luke Henwood, a birdie on the 17th coming too late.
Thought 11 under would have been good enough, but no, he killed us.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
At 3:40 this morning, newsagent Michael Larkin received the shock of his life when 4 men broke through the back door of his store.
And I just froze. I froze and thought, I'm gone. I didn't know what to expect. The first fellow coming through had a crowbar in his hand. He ran in and grabbed me. The next fellow had a jagged-edged knife in his hand.
The men forced Michael to open the safe and stole several $1,000s in cash. They then escaped in a stolen vehicle, which has since been found burnt out.
It was terrifying. I didn't know what to expect. I thought, I'm going to get bashed here. I have never been so scared in all my life.
Police believe the same men are responsible for a robbery at this news agency at New Lambton just 10 minutes earlier.
They had bound and gagged the news agent there. Now, we believe they may have been disturbed by a truck driver who'd arrived to make a delivery.
It's not yet known what or if anything was stolen. Meanwhile, at 1:45 this morning, thieves broke into the Michael Hill Jewellers inside Stockland, Jesmond.
The thieves have targeted diamond rings, solid gold bangles, necklaces, things like that, some of the expensive jewellery.
Well over 100 items are believed to have been stolen. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
After a week-long hearing, Deputy State Coroner Karl Milovanovich today delivered a very similar finding to his first inquest in 2004. The fire that destroyed more than a dozen homes and killed Sydney man Ronald Gillette was deliberately lit, but by who remains unknown. The magistrate put to bed concerns of Abernathy resident and instigator of the inquiry Gary Price and cleared the Rural Fire Service. There is no evidence to support that any serving member of the RFS was involved in the lighting of the racecourse fire, nor is there any evidence of any cover-up or conspiracy by any member of the RFS. However, Magistrate Milovanovich believes the inquiry wasn't a waste of time because it identified Brendan Hoken as a person of interest. Mr Milovanovich labelled the original police investigation as deficient, querying why Mr Hoken wasn't questioned, especially when the officer in charge had arrested him only a few days earlier for lighting a fire that he's since served jail time over. There is no doubt that Mr Hoken should have been and probably remains a person of interest. This court, however, cannot base its findings on speculation. Magistrate Milovanovich told the court he believes Gary Price is a well-intentioned member of the community who lived through a very traumatic experience and wanted to know what happened. But he cautioned the public against making their own investigations, recommending any evidence or information be handed to police who are trained to investigate. The coroner also recommended a reward be offered for information leading to the conviction of the firebug. Mr Price says he feels vindicated by the findings and welcomed the call for a reward. Penny Evans, NBN News.
It's been 3 years since Newcastle's alcohol-free zones were created in the CBD, and now Council wants to expand the program at the city's newest entertainment precinct, Honeysuckle.
We really want to see less inappropriate antisocial behaviour on the street and less littering, and alcohol-free zones are a good way to make that happen.
Police say the zones are needed in Honeysuckle and are supporting Council's proposal.
That would be another tool that we could certainly use in our efforts to curtail some of the antisocial behaviour, alcohol-related crime that is occurring.
If councillors approve the new zones, they would remain in place until 2011.
The zones have been advertised, they're currently on public exhibition, and we'd be interested to have people's feedback on whether there's any streets that they think we should add.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's prime real estate right on Stockton Beach, 15 minutes from the city with ocean, harbour and dune views. And with an elevated position, local agents say it presents itself as one of the most exciting development opportunities on the East Coast. The parcel of land known as Fort Wallace covers 32 hectares, while there are 111 hectares a few kilometres north at the former rifle range in Fern Bay. The Department of Defence plans to offload it all.
The site was part of the Newcastle
defence, Fort Defence. It linked itself with Fort Scratchley, and it had a number of gun emplacements and observation towers.
Defence will begin remediation work shortly, with the sale expected in the next couple of years. And with Newcastle's population predicted to increase by 30% to 676,000 by 2036, more residential land is needed. Once sold, the new owner would need to apply to council for rezoning due to current constraints.
The Department of Defence and the Commonwealth, for that matter, don't get involved in looking at future usability of sites. We just make sure that it is as good as it can possibly be before we present it to the market.
Residents of Fern Bay say they're concerned about the impact on their quiet community.
I wouldn't like to see it sold because I wouldn't like to see it develop.
An information session will be held tonight at the Stockton RSL. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Superman had X-ray vision, and most people were happy knowing that particular power was confined to the comic book elite. That was until the new security system was introduced at Melbourne, and all of a sudden your Sunday best became see-through. While the scans blur people's faces, their private parts are not distorted, raising concerns among civil libertarians. But the Australian distributor of another body scanner says its product has all the positives of that technology and sorts out the privacy issue.
The computer takes an image of the body, and any obstructions to that passive millimetre waves is then referred to the computer where it's highlighted on the screen.
The scanner is already being used at Heathrow Airport and the Vatican and can detect liquids, gels, powders and anything solid.
The Gen 2 is completely non-intrusive. What you see on the screen is a real-life image and nothing more.
Trial at Kuala Lumpur Airport will start this week with more than 100 scanners to be installed. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
First of all, mate, welcome to Newcastle. Pretty happy to be back on the training paddock.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a tough few months for me, and actually just be out there and have a kick around with the boys and to be up here in Newcastle, I'm very happy. I enjoyed my time at Sydney. I ventured overseas to try my luck, and it so happens I've come back here. I wanted to start over fresh, and Con and John have been kind enough to give me the chance to do so up here. Obviously I know a lot of the boys here through Socceroos and Olyroos and things like that, so it was I guess an obvious option for myself. I haven't had much match practice, and I guess with the A-League having a youth grade now, that'll give me a chance to get some game time before I come back in and put my hand up for a spot in the first team.
Where would you like to see yourself fitting in once you do come back into the first team?
Obviously I've been playing in midfield for a little while now with the Olyroos and whatnot, so but it's a very good squad, and the boys had a very good win on the weekend. I think I'm just lucky that I've got 2 weeks to sort of fight and try and get a spot in this team.
At just 19, Marco Jesic has already recovered from 2 knee reconstructions, but the future finally looks bright. An impressive winner against Melbourne and now a recall to the young Socceroos, alongside teammates James Holland, Ben Kantarovski and Jason Nadovski. But Jesic admits he has mixed feelings about leaving his post.
Doing so well, and then get the call up, and then you have to start all over again when you come back from it. So to be with the 20s and not here with the Jets, it's a bit of a bummer.
Job Wheelhouse is definitely happy to be staying at home, with the local boy signing a new 2-year deal with the club.
The last 3 or 4 weeks has been a little bit sort of topsy-turvy, not knowing whether I was going to be here or not, and not knowing what club I was going to be at, but deep down I always wanted to stay here, and I'm happy to get it finalised.
Wheelhouse and his coach believe he's forging a formidable partnership in the back line with captain Jade North.
We think we've probably found an area where he's most effective. But at the same time, it's not as if to say he'll never play in the midfield again.
And despite speculation surrounding his possible departure, Edmundo Zura attended both of today's training sessions. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Not everyone got to go on a ride this year because of confusion over who was entitled to the public holiday and who wasn't. Regardless, Newcastle Council has approved next year's holiday for Friday, March 27.
I appreciate it's a dilemma, but the show has been operating for over 100 years and Council, I think, is correct in supporting the show as they rebuild.
The support has been welcomed by the show president, who is awaiting a similar decision from Lake Macquarie Council.
We're disappointed that Port Stephens don't have it for us any longer, but I'll be talking to them again as I do. But no, it's very important to us, Lake Macquarie, Newcastle, that they support us, yeah.
But the Hunter Business Chamber says given only certain employees get the holiday, there should have been more consultation.
By their own admission, the public holiday is set to cost Newcastle City Council over $200,000. That figure would be duplicated many times over in the public and private sectors.
Penny Evans, NBN News. New Lambton South Public School and St Pius at Katara are eagerly awaiting their new lights designed to improve pedestrian safety around school zones. They've been promised the new signs will be in place before the end of the school year. Over at Floraville Public School, their new lights arrived over the weekend. But the NRMA believes it's the government that's travelling below the speed limit.
Only 5% of schools have flashing lights. The current state government program is going too slow.
Under the program, Cessnock West, St Patrick's at Cessnock and Toronto High School have all received flashing lights this year. However, plenty more schools are putting their hands up for funding.
The current commitment by the state government is $46.5 million over the next 4 years, yet they generate $45 million per year from revenue from speed cameras.
The government says 400 schools will receive flashing lights over the next 4 years. Penny Evans, NBN News.
We just think, looking towards the future, that might be a good way for us to go. We just think, yeah, it's more even competition from what we can see.
Officially unveiled to the media today, Mark Milligan was all smiles as his promising career gets back on track.
I haven't had a layoff like this out of the game in a long time, and you know I just miss playing, I just miss training, and I just want to get back on the park.
With 4 Newcastle players picked in the Young Socceroos squad for the Asian Championship, Jets officials submitted a request to the FFA for Milligan to act as a replacement this Friday against the Mariners. Despite his lack of match fitness, the 23-year-old is confident he'll do the job in one of the biggest games of the season.
The derby, Sydney, Central Coast and whatnot, I don't think even compares to the Newcastle Central Coast derby. So it'll be a new experience for me, but something I'm very excited about.
Having plied his trade in defence early in his career, both coach and player are keen for a move forward.
I see him playing in the middle of the park. He has got the versatility of playing at the back or at right fullback, but I think more so in the middle of the park where he can get on the ball more.
He'll be forced to make several changes, but as usual, Van Egmond is giving little away in the lead up to the derby.
When you play poker, you don't play open hand poker, so keep a few things closer to our chest. I'm sure Laurie will do the same.
Milligan and the rest of the Jets squad will have another chance to impress the boss tomorrow before the side is finalised. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Just over a week ago, the mayors of Wyong and Gosford agreed it's unlikely the Central Coast will use the Tilligra Dam and therefore shouldn't have to foot any part of the $400 million bill. So some may question the timing of Hunter Water's announcement today, given their pricing proposal has been revised and increased for Hunter ratepayers. Kevin Young denies there's a link, saying the extra money is needed for ageing infrastructure.
Our original price submission allowed no contribution for the Central Coast for Tilligra Dam, and our revised pricing submission, and they're all on the IPART website, also allow no contribution. So nothing's changed there.
Hunter Water's original proposal last month called for an average increase of $165 to annual water bills. That's now risen to $207 or 29% for the next financial year, bringing the total average bill to $925. They say it was a simple planning error and they're resubmitting the proposal with the new correct figures.
We put our pricing submission into IPART, and since then we've done modelling, both of us, and there were differences between the models. We got it wrong and we needed to increase our prices to cover our capital and operating program.
Hunter Water says only 10% of the money will go towards Tilligra Dam. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. It was a fitting location to farewell the 100-year-old. His family, friends and colleagues gathered at the oldest church in Newcastle to celebrate the life of the city's oldest practising lawyer. The church overflowed as loved ones paid tribute to George Bilby, who regarded himself as the working man's lawyer, starting from humble beginnings as the son of a coal miner.
George Bilby was a man who was always positive, always optimistic. There was a solution for every problem.
George was a gentleman in an age when gentlemanly behaviour has waned.
Born in May 1908, he began as a stenographer at age 15 and was admitted in 1938. He spent 70 years as a lawyer, taking immense pride in helping people, and just a week ago was still advising clients, including the fourth generation of one family.
I don't feel old. I feel I have a young person's mind in an older person's body. The words of Mr. Bilby.
He was an amazing man whose brain always needed to be challenged, and he loved to impart his wisdom, wit and advice to others.
We have witnessed a life that by its example is advice in itself.
He is survived by his wife Eileen, whom he married in 1944. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Ken Lowe thinks he's the luckiest bloke alive. In February, he suffered a massive stroke. The section indicated in green on these brain scans shows the extent of his injury. But fast-tracked treatment and timely access to a clot-busting drug ensured there were minimal long-term impacts.
I'm doing okay. I've still got a little bit of a problem there with the balance and a little bit of memory loss. But things are starting to settle down.
Ken was treated while the HMRI's POST program was being trialled. If a stroke patient isn't cared for within 3 hours, the chances of death or disability are greatly increased. This new system streamlines the process from when an ambulance is called to the management of the condition in hospital.
What we have is an ambulance assessment tool, and that is to identify the potential patients that would meet the requirements of getting the treatment when they do arrive within the ED.
Since the trial, the number of patients receiving the clot-busting drug has more than quadrupled.
As a consequence of that, we know that that's led to a significant reduction in disability of the people that have been treated, which on its own actually saves the community a lot of money.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Ian Crook was a familiar face at training this morning, having coached several current Jets, including Mark Milligan, Jobe Wheelhouse and the Griffiths brothers. The former Newcastle United mentor will make his return to the region as the Jets' high-performance manager, to play a role in youth development as well as scouting and player recruitment.
Certainly never expected to sort of be back in here. I was sort of happy with what I was doing, but yeah, no, look, delighted to sort of have the opportunity as a new challenge for me.
His 18 months of coaching experience in Japan could prove priceless as the Jets make the step up into the Asian Champions League.
Sort of know the Asian market to an extent, like to get to know it more as well to help, so yeah, that's all things to look forward to.
Back on the park, and Edmundo Zura didn't look like a man who wants out of Newcastle. He'll start against the Mariners, and Gary Van Egmond today hinted that new signing Mark Milligan and Korean import Song may also feature in the first 11. Meanwhile, Joel Griffiths is fully fit and ready to face the Central Coast.
He'll definitely start. There's a few other things which we're tossing up in regards to players and what system to play.
Tarek Elrich has been one of the Jets' best this season, and he says a groin injury won't keep him out of the F3 derby.
We've done a lot of treatment over the last couple of days after the game on the weekend, and yeah, it's put up pretty good, and I got through this morning's session, so it should be all right for tomorrow.
Kick-off is at Gosford tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
We're playing in front of our home fans again, and we owe it to them to put on a good performance, and we'll be doing everything in our power to do that.